what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 2 4 key game picks. Before we talk about Week number 2, and I will give a very quick recap of my thoughts from Week number 1, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of the commenters, Bud Skinner. He commented, basically brought up a good point about how I'm basing my picks. I want to make this quick, people, is that those who watch my videos and all are wondering why I don't talk about the spreads and the lines and basically on. My picks are straight up, I pick them, you pick them. I base my opinions based on what I see in every NFL team that played the previous week, as basically when I recap my week, every week in the NFL, my very short description and my thoughts. I basically make my opinions based on what I saw on football team and in my predictions. This is not about against the spread or anything and all that. There are other sources you can look at on YouTube or anything else for that matter. So keep in mind, guys, I do straight up pick them. That's basically what my style of NFL prediction and picking football games is based on. I do not base it on, against the spread or anything else for that matter. You can go to other sources for that, people. Okay? Everything is based on my opinion on every NFL team when I talk about them and why I consider them playing is a key game during the week or a game to watch. Anyways, talking about week number 1, there's too much to digest in week number 1, and I'm just going to give this quick opinion basically and all that. This definitely was one of the wildest NFL week 1 openers I've seen in years. The Packers getting blown out by the Saints, Jameis Winston basically embarrassing, and I mean really, really embarrassing Aaron Rodgers and that offense, and that defense, I should say. Basically, Packers offense, they were not prepared at all, despite the fact that everyone's saying that, Aaron Rodgers doesn't need preseason. Well, I just wonder what happened in week number 1. And I wonder if this is a sign of things to come for the Packers team. Maybe they're not as good as they thought they were. I don't know. Or maybe the Saints are finding their ways now to win, as Sean Payton did a good job in coaching in that game. And yeah, you got to wonder about the Packers. Have the Saints found their flaws? I don't know if that's true or not. The Chiefs coming back against the Browns. I don't know if Chiefs coming back in that football game was really the reason they won, or the Browns basically fall flat on their behinds against the Chiefs in the second half of that game. The Browns dominated the first half of that football game, and yet they laid an egg in the second half, and the Chiefs basically came back and won. I think the Browns have some soul-searching to do. This was a game the Browns should have won, but they got lazy in the second half, and it cost them. And now Baker Mayfield and that Browns team better get their act together in this coming Sunday. If the Browns go down 0-2, then there's some big problems. There could be some big problems coming ahead for this team. But really right now, the Chiefs, they always start out slow, and then for some reason they come and rip the game from their opponents. And that really is something. How about that Monday night game? Ravens and the Raiders. I don't know if it was an all-time classic or maybe one of the, I don't know, both teams looked nervous and not sure what they were doing in that football game, but it was a close game all the way, and the Raiders ended up winning in overtime. And in all honesty though, the Ravens had control of this game up until the fourth quarter, and yet they let the Raiders come back and tie the game, and then they let them beat them in overtime. Basically, turnovers cost them. I don't know what Lamar Jackson was doing in the fourth quarter and in overtime. Basically, the turnovers cost the Ravens in that game. Obviously, I know the Ravens are dealing with injuries right now, but that shouldn't have been an excuse. That offense needs help big time. It seemed like Lamar Jackson's doing most of the work and also having to rely on Tucker. So really, there's a lot of things that Ravens team needs to fix right now. I'm not ready to buy that the Raiders are for real. Even though the AFC West were all winners, as well as the NFC West, everybody in the NFC West dominated their games as well. But it's like I said, it's only week 1. We don't know what's going to happen down the road from now. Anyways, let's talk about week number 2. All right, let's talk about key game number 1, and that is the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins, a crucial AFC East game here. Now, Josh Allen last week in that loss against the Steelers, he went 30 of 51, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. And for Tua, he went 16 of 27, 202 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Both teams in their respective games did not play their best at all. And obviously, I think for Buffalo, they kind of knew Pittsburgh was not the same Steeler team like last season where they struggled a lot in the end. I think to me, it could be, I think it's a wake-up call for the Bills. The Bills know they're a much better team than what they should be. But really, but when I look at the Dolphins here, they barely beat the Patriots here. Offense-wise, they're trying to figure themselves out. Defense-wise, they're not that good. So this is a game I should see Josh Allen torching that Dolphin defense here. So now the Bills are a slight 3.5-point favorite in this one here, and it wouldn't surprise me if that number goes to 3 or 2.5. But the way that their offense, they got to get their offense together here because they really struggled throughout the second half. Even though throughout the first half of that game, even though they almost came from behind to beat Pittsburgh, but they just couldn't catch up in the end. I think Pittsburgh was just too much. Look, the Bills know they're a much better team, and they got to show it against the Dolphins this coming Sunday. So I'm picking the Bills here. I think the Bills bounce back here. The Bills have a much better team than the Dolphins. The Dolphins still are struggling on offensively. They only scored 17 points against the Patriots. Defense-wise, they almost let the Patriots come back and win. I'm picking the Bills here. I think they'll bounce back here, and I like the Bills in this one here. Bills over the Dolphins. Key game number 2, a classic showdown from the 70s. The Raiders versus the Steelers. Now, I know it's not the 70s anymore as we head into this era right now of football here. Like I was mentioning earlier about the Raiders winning. Now, David Carr really had a good game. 34, 56, 435 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did have 1 interception in that game. Now, Roethlisberger didn't play his best, but the running game and that parts of the Pittsburgh defense did a great job on the Buffalo Bills, which basically was the difference in beating them. Roethlisberger only went 18 of 32, 188 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Roethlisberger is going to need to play a little bit more better than this to beat this Raiders. It's hard. Like I said, I'm not going to crown the Raiders yet as a enormous Super Bowl contender just yet. I mean, they got lucky against the Ravens. Pittsburgh's offense really needs to pound the football and basically give the Raiders defense some hurting. Now, I look at this football game here. The Steelers are a 5.5-point favorite. It'll probably go to 5, maybe 4.5. But I would say that's just about right. In all honesty here, for the Raiders here, they have to play much more better than they did against the Ravens because their offense struggled a lot in that game. Their defense wasn't all that great either. And Pittsburgh is no joke when it comes. Pittsburgh's not a joke as they were last season. I like the Steelers in this game. I think to me the Steelers are on a mission. They know that they're trying to get back on track. They're trying to remain a Super Bowl contender here. I think the Raiders continued their struggles here. In a game they should have lost against the Ravens, but they ended up winning anyways. I don't think against the Steelers, I don't think it's going to be the same thing like the Ravens, that the Steelers will fall flat. No, I see the Steelers winning this game here. I think Ben Roethlisberger and the offense will get much better. I think they'll torch that Raider defense for sure in this one here. I like the Steelers over the Raiders. Key game number 3, the Dallas Cowboys versus the Chargers. Now, Prescott last week, 42 of 58, 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Probably had one of the better games he's had before his injury. Now, the Chargers, they played well enough to beat the Washington team last week. I mean, the defense really finally came alive, but really the Chargers offense still had struggles last week, even though they still won. Justin Herbert, 31 of 47, 337 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception here. This is actually kind of a tough pick here because the current odds right now for this game, the Chargers are a 3-point favorite in this one, and that number is definitely going to drop. Because the way the Cowboys played last week, they look like they're getting back on track, as Jerry Jones is hoping for, to get this Cowboy team back to relevance. The Chargers defense is going to have a handful with Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott because the way they played against the Buccaneers, and they almost gave the Buccaneers a loss last week in a good game they had. But I think to me, the Chargers, they have to play much more flawlessly, not turn the ball over to beat this Cowboys team, because this Cowboy team is going to be trying to get that train going to trying to make a run. As you can see that lightning bolt behind me, you know I will be cheering for the Chargers personally, though. But making this football pick, the Dallas Cowboys are going to be too much for the Chargers here. This will be. I don't think I'll consider this a slight upset, because even though the Chargers are a 3-point favorite in this one here, I think that number will be much lower towards kickoff. But I'm picking the Cowboys here. I think the Cowboys will beat the Chargers here. It might be a football game. It might be close, but I think the Cowboys offense is going to be too much for the Chargers defense to handle, because the Chargers had troubles against Washington last week, and the Chargers defense better be ready for the Cowboys. Otherwise, I see the Cowboys beating the Chargers here, and it pains me to say that. I'm picking the Cowboys here, Cowboys over the Chargers. And finally, key game number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens. Mahomes last week went 27 of 36, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Now, Lamar Jackson, 19 of 30, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. It's really the battle of these two mobile quarterbacks. We've seen this already a couple of years already. They've had some great matchups, and don't be surprised if this is going to be a good game too on Sunday night. The only thing is, though, the Ravens need to get healthy. They need help big time in both sides of the ball, because they, like I was mentioning earlier, talking about that Monday night game, they should have beaten the Raiders, and they didn't. The injuries are kind of hurting them, and they really need to get their act together to beat this offensive juggernaut of the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs had to come from behind in the second half and just to beat the Browns. But I just think with the injuries and the way that Wing Martindale's defense, they're being a little bit too aggressive. I think, to me, that the Chiefs and that offense are going to give the Ravens defense fits here. I think I'm actually going to go with the Chiefs here. The Chiefs are a 3.5-point favorite in this game, and I would say that is about right. I just think that their offense is the way their offense played last week. If somehow if you're going to beat the Chiefs, you better find a way to make sure Patrick Mahomes doesn't get the ball, because the way that Chiefs offense had played last week against the Browns, don't be surprised if they do it again against the Ravens here. And I'm picking the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will beat the Ravens. It's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a good game Sunday night, but I'm going with the Chiefs here in this one here. The Chiefs over the Ravens. All right, everybody, that wraps up my picks for week number 2. For all of my NFL Week 2 picks, please check the description below, and I'll talk to you guys next week when I make my picks for week number 3. Until then, take care and enjoy your football weekend.